Perfect timing. Just didn't press hard enough.
As always.
Yep, typical story. All right. This is our special edition Jazz Cabbage Cafe for the 2022 elections, and there is notably 32 local ballot considerations taking place in 31 townships and cities. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a village sprinkled in there somewhere.
There are.
And we're going to go through them and talk about them and see what's going on. Chris Silva, Redemption Cannabis also.
Yo.
It's the biggest can of Michigan organic rub I've ever seen in my life, and I want some.
I wish it was a full-on can. That'd be great.
I love that stuff.
Yep. And Chad Watch, and lots of experience with elections, local elections, and politics and all that kind of crap. The history goes back with Chris a little bit, and glad to have you on with us, and obviously on the regular show earlier today, but we're going to talk about all this local stuff happening in Michigan and kind of go through with where they are and what the differences and the approach is and what we think about it. And hopefully we'll catch some results.
Dope.
And of course, we're going to monitor, in addition to all of the cannabis elections, all the other elections that are running on too in Michigan. Although statewide elections typically don't report until 9 p.m. Eastern in Michigan, because we do have a piece of the Upper Peninsula, which is in the Central Time Zone, and they don't allow the publication of those statewide election results until all polls are closed. However, all of the ballot initiatives that I can see are in the Eastern Time Zone, so we should start getting some data on some of those right away.
You concur, Chris?
Yeah, I think most of these smaller ones they're probably already wrapped up right now. You know what I mean? Like, especially most of these cities, smaller ones are probably
Zilwaukee, for example.
Yeah. So I'm just
some of these ones that took like 40 signatures, as we were talking about earlier today, to get on the ballot.
Yeah, they'll have those figured out quick. So.
Well, Berrien County, for example, is in the on the Lake Michigan shoreline. It has only about 159,000 registered voters. They have several different ballot proposals of interest tonight. Berrien County has, Hager Township and Niles. So those are both pretty straightforward authorizations of cannabis adult use businesses.
Yeah, there's also an interesting one. I don't know if you guys saw Breedsville. Like, somebody did a petition there to disincorporate the village. There's a dispensary there and a couple cultivation facilities.
Yep.
So the municipality that Breedsville would revert to, I forget the name of it right now, but they have not opted in. So it would put, if that were to happen,
that's interesting predicament.
Really weird, yeah, because so anyway, so that's an interesting one that I'll be watching at. My wife and I actually helped open that store with the original owners, and I flipped some property and stuff over there. So it's an area I know a little bit about, and it'd be interesting. Just been watching it, that's a marijuana one, but I don't think that. I mean, I believe that's the reason that it was an initiated petition, but it's definitely not like in the summary of the ones that we're talking about, the 32 like standalone marijuana ones,
Right. And it's 31 local communities actually weighing in, because in one there are two ballot measures, and one is they're not competing. That was my original thought. One is to repeal the existing activity, and then to opt out or completely prohibit maybe the future activity.
That community is Memphis. Now, Memphis is unique in another respect. It sits in both Macomb and St. Clair counties. Some cities do that, where the county line comes, basically right downtown and splits it in half.
Is it a city?
It's let's see, Memphis City. Yes, it is.
Okay. City. All right.
Yep.
Call into question the ability to repeal anything if that was the case, but it is not the case, so I won't do that.
So in Memphis, They have, as Jamie mentioned, 2 different ballot proposals. One would repeal the authorization for existing adult use cannabis businesses there, and the second would ban all future adult use businesses from being licensed. So those 2 are definitely on the negative side. Gibson Township is a ban. Langsburg City would take adult use retail licenses from 2 to 1, which is also a negative.
Yeah, so let's talk about the first one and the one you just mentioned right there. When you're trying to like take back business that's already gone into operation, that's an extremely tough one to do, and there is a legitimate challenge for being grandfathered in for that activity.
Yep. It's a questionable as to whether or not, and Chris, maybe your experience can help here too. It's questionable as to whether or not you can take something away from a person that they've previously been given. Jamie mentioned grandfather clause, and that's a function, my understanding is, of the Michigan Home Rule Cities Act, which really only applies to cities and a very few townships. Chris, does that jibe with what you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, and I'll definitely preface all of this by saying I'm definitely 100% not a lawyer. That being said, I think that probably even if yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that probably even if this did happen and that this municipality was decertified or whatever, I honestly just think the precedent that's been set in our industry with lawsuits and stuff that like I don't even know that township would even want to do that. I think they would probably just be like, all right, man, like let's just keep things moving because you know what I'm saying? Like you guys know, like people drop so much money on lawsuits and stuff like just when they don't get the individual spot they wanted or something, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, for in my opinion, sometimes bullshit. They'll just be like, oh, I wasn't one of the 5 guys who got one. I'm going to tie you up forever in lawsuits. And this is a pretty like, these guys were operating for multiple years and, you know, like they literally had nothing to do with it. They're, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like they weren't like a nuisance or anything. So I just think they'd have like a much easier time making an argument that, you know, for I don't know. I just think it'd be litigated out. So I can't imagine it actually happens.
I think you're right about that. It's certainly, we are a very litigious society. We like to sue our way into success. Loom Cannabis in Michigan, very well known for that particular feature. And if you were to try and take something away from someone, then I think, you know, Jamie mentioned it and Chris mentioned it too. You're probably not likely to be successful, and that business is going to stay open for the 2 or 3 years it takes to litigate that lawsuit. So, you know, where was the victory? Where was the win? Sometimes these ballot proposals are initiated by citizens who may not have thought out all of the possible ramifications of what their proposal might imply. So I think that's true to say.
Absolutely.
As Christian was on earlier, that his state of South Dakota is weighing in tonight. I don't have any clue what's going on with that, but maybe he does, or maybe we'll see that along the way while we're looking at some of the other results. 5 states altogether, plus Colorado's looking at some psychedelic stuff, or I'm not sure what the wording is, entheogens maybe, or mushrooms. I don't know.
There's a variety of
entheogen, yeah.
Well, and we also have, pardon me, 5 states which are going for either medical or adult use cannabis programs, which includes, I think, Maryland, Arkansas, Missouri, and then North and South Dakota. Some of those haven't been polling very well. It's possible that some of the statewide ballot proposals may not be successful, but we have seen that before. So,
yeah. So I mean, I guess like the language where there's some potential thing to consider about the consequences or this type of thing where there could be a challenge because of grandfathering and you know, but otherwise, yeah, I like the fact that you were heading down the list and going over all the places where they were. I just wanted to stop and talk about some considerations, I guess, as they come up.
Well, let me just give you some of the first election updates that we have as far as numbers go. In the race for governor, Gretchen Whitmer is reported to have 73,252 votes. Tudor Dixon, 15,000. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, 74,000. Carmano, the crazy woman, 14,000. Attorney General Dana Nessel, 71,922. And Matt DePerno, 16,000. So we're seeing a significant lead by all the Dems in the early voting. But again, these are with 0 precincts reporting. So I have to assume that this is most likely mail-in ballots. And I think we were told ahead of time, this particular election, mail-in ballots might favor Democrats a lot more than the walk-in candidates. So it's really early to draw any conclusions from any of those numbers.
I like the way they sound for right now, though.
71-14. Yes, I like the way they sound too, sir.
Yeah, I think it's all going to come down to like turnout, and it's going to be weird too because it's going to be like not how it usually is. Usually turnout is good for blue team, but I think blue team right now is much more aggressive on the absentee campaigns and just like doing, it's kind of early voting and pre-voting and stuff. So I tend to agree with you guys there.
I think that's fair. I also think, when we're looking at this type of an election year, we saw today on Facebook, Richard Clement talking about his voting precinct attendance was way up. Cynthia Johnson, also from Detroit, said her precinct attendance was way up too. That bodes well for the Democratic ticket.
I know that a lot of people are concerned, even a lot of Republicans, about the taking away of rights in terms of the Roe decision and privacy and body autonomy considerations and stuff. And, maybe that's got some people concerned enough.
I hope so. For many, many years, we suffered with such a ridiculous low level of participation in our electoral process. It was really very frustrating. And I know I'm not the only person that has felt that way, but I'm excited that even if it's for horrible reasons, we're still seeing people turn out. Proposal 1, 2, and 3 are very polarizing. I'm looking for numbers on those, and it might be a little bit early for me to get that. Or maybe I just can't find it. But, I'm curious to see where they end up at. These are judges.
There we go.
Yeah. So we're looking. Proposal 1 currently has the same 74,000 to 15,000. So does Proposal 2, 74,000 to 16,000, and Proposal 3, 74,000 to 19,000. So again, the early numbers are almost identical, as if everybody voted Democratic or everyone voted.
And yes, on all those proposals.
Yeah. Yep. So those are interesting election results here for the state of Michigan. I'm still looking for some of these smaller communities and election results for them, and I'm just not seeing
They haven't
it yet.
They haven't updated. The one that I like a lot, electionreporting.com, they use a lot of a very good amount of the county clerks and stuff in Michigan use that. So it'll go they'll be unofficial results there. And I haven't found really anything yet. They don't even have the data that you're talking about, but I imagine it'll be pretty quick because the counties have a lot of other stuff that's not statewide stuff, and a lot of this stuff is shit, man. Like in South Haven and Breedsville and stuff, only a few hundred people voted on some of this stuff,
Right. I'm quoting from ClarityElections.com, but I also have electionreporting.com up, as well as michigan.totalvote.com. So I'm using these as different sourcing for the different amendments and different things that are going on in different cities. As I mentioned before, 21 different counties have cannabis-related ballot proposals. Oakland, again, by far, with 7 cannabis-related ballot proposals. Wayne with 3, Gladwin with 2, Bay County with 2, and Berrien County with 2. That's the only multiple, and then there are a bunch of singles in places like Genesee and Muskegon and Benzie counties. So. But we talked about this earlier on Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Some of the proposals that are being put before the people seem awfully beneficial to one single community member. For example, one in Brandon Township and Flat Rock, both, the language says they're allowing one adult use retail, but they specifically says, but prohibiting all other adult use license types. That's a dick move in any language. I mean, Chris, am I wrong about that?
Where is that one?
That's in both Brandon Township and Flat Rock. The language is identical, to imply that it was one group that sponsored both of those proposals.
What's interesting, so in a township, as far as I know, and there could be a really good explanation for this language, and it's all good and all that kind of stuff, but a township can opt in or opt out, which licenses and how many of them. So to have both language of an opt-in and kind of an opt-out, like in the same language for a township.
Well, they probably set the numbers of the licenses to 0. You know what I mean? Like that's what they would argue is they're saying, hey, we're allowed to say how many and where, and we're saying fucking 1. Like
exactly.
So it's probably. I mean, here's the thing too, though, like. While it is definitely like a predatory move, like somebody's got like the only whatever like location that fits or something, right? Or they have like everything locked down. Like maybe there's multiple locations that fit. They probably own all of them. But like I will say from the municipality standpoint, like if you're just some person who lives there, if they get the dispensary, the city's going to get, however, like the $5,000 to do the license and all that shit. And then they're going to get the like $60,000 or something in the excise tax, and that'll increase over time, hopefully. And so for them, that's gravy, and everything else from a lot of people's perspective who don't like weed is kind of a pain in the ass. Like they're like, oh, like why would we want you to have all of these like cultivation facilities and shit? You know what I mean? Like to a lot of people, like which is crazy because when this first started, the retail was the thing everybody hated and didn't want in their community. And it was easier to go get them to opt in for a cultivation facility or a processing facility for someone. But now it's like, I don't know, like the municipalities are just like, okay, we're going to have to deal with it. I think the money part obviously is really big. So I wonder too, if they didn't do it like as a strategy, if they were just like, hey, listen, like now when we're out here selling this to people, we're like, hey, this is one store, just one. And it's not going to be like, like a huge factory of people growing weed. Everybody's smoking like weed in the parking lot on their lunch break and shit. There's like Grateful Dead flags and stuff. Like it's not going to be like that, like, so I wonder if it's also partially just like political on that sense too,
That's a good point.
Because you don't get any money from the municipality for any of those other licenses.
Right. Nope. You don't get them for medical either. And some of these are just medical, which we'll get to along the way here.
Yep. There are 3 specifically, Imlay City, Keego Harger, and Royal Oak Township, all of which have, again, identical language, which implies one particular entity has sponsored all 3 of those, medical only. And as we talked about earlier today, for a community in 2022 to just opt into medical only is really like a death sentence to any of the businesses that say yes to that community, because you really can't go anywhere with it. But as Chris correctly pointed out earlier today, this is really a backdoor into adult use. Can you explain what you mean by that, Chris?
Sure. So one, a lot of people think that the systems will be merged soon. I tend to agree with that. I think that makes sense, And so I guess the conventional wisdom is that if it gets merged, it'll make any place that opted in at all basically like the same license class because there's only one of them, right? But I would also make the argument that even if that didn't happen, a lot of these people that are doing this are probably like, hey, once we get in and like, we have relationships, we're investing in the community and shit, we're building out all this infrastructure in our store and X, Y, and Z. And as you do that, I feel like lots of people think that when you're doing that, you can go to the city and be like, hey, we've been up a few months. Like, I don't know if you know this, but the medical market's a fucking joke. Like, we're actually not making any money. Like, do you want us to keep doing all of this stuff and employing all these people? And then like, once you're kind of already got them there, I think a lot of people think it's going to be easier to just 1, wait for the state to force it, or 2, just go to the city and be like, I can't I can't make it like this. You guys need to opt in for rec and let me convert this to a rec license. I think that's what a lot of people, and I think that seems to be working in general. That's kind of how these things move. But I mean, the medical side, even if you thought you had a community where there was enough medical patients and stuff, like Grand Rapids, for example, you could have a medical only store there. The problem is nobody's making medical products anymore. Like you know what I'm saying? You literally wouldn't have shit to put in it,
Yep.
Yeah, and some people have the concern that the medical is going away. That's the medical commercial program that was passed by the legislature, and for certain reasons with certain strategies, and it's very restrictive and it's very prohibitive. It's just not a very good or competitive system. It's a lot more costly, and it's going to go down one way or another. That's why formally combining them and kind of doing it in a way that makes sense, is likely to happen.
And we stopped. I say we, the community itself, essentially stopped the marijuana regulatory agency 2 years ago from doing that because we didn't like the way in which they were going to combine the medical and the adult use programs. So that was a real concern. I have an election result regarding one of these marijuana establishment proposals, by the way. Auburn Hills.
Oh, yeah.
City adult use marijuana establishments for Auburn Hills. Yes, at 707 and no at 426. Again, 0 precincts reporting, but that's a yes lead, which is, again, what we expected with all those Democratic early voting things coming in.
So the guys basically, I guess, that are involved with some places in the industry now, years ago, brought representatives from Auburn Hills to Third Coast in Ypsilanti to keep an eye on, as we did, we invited in many lawyers or city attorneys or
municipal leaders to show them what a functioning store looks like. Right.
Yep. And that one though was particularly a disaster. They weren't anywhere near ready to really do something. So this many years later, it's good to see some movement there.
Well, here's another one. Lathrop Village has yes votes at 544 and no votes at 427. Now, considering how wide a margin those other yes and no gulfs are, this one's pretty tight. So it looks like Lathrop Village may not be supporting that. And that's good because Lathrop Village is banning all cannabis businesses. So we want that one to fail.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Let's see. What else do we have here in Oakland Township or Oakland Community, Oakland County here? Brandon. Where's Brandon Township? Brandon has been one that was written up in a community in the
by Clarkston.
Yeah, it's been written up in the paper because Brandon was kind of interesting. Township. Let's see. Ballot proposal for Royal Oak Township, Oakland County, Michigan. That is yes 185, no 154. That's really close. Royal Oak Township is a scattered community of unincorporated areas just north of Detroit in southern Oakland County. Just like Lathrop Village, that one doesn't look like it's going to be successful. But this one, Royal Oak Township, actually, we did like that one, although it was med only. Let's see, what else? Brandon, Addison. Let's see if we can find some of these others.
Royal Oak Township is one of the townships that's not actually abutting the city of the same name. It's it's not too far away, but it's a little ways away.
Well, here's one I wasn't aware of. The village of Leonard has a marijuana petition that I did not know about. It's not on any of my lists.
It's right by where I used to live a few years ago in Oxford. right down the road.
Well, with the early election results for the marijuana petition for the village of Leonard, no at 91 and yes at 32. So I am curious to know what the village of Leonard's proposal looks like, whether it is a positive or a negative.
Right.
Well, look, you learn about new stuff.
2/3. There's 2/3 on the other third as far as the ratios of people who support something or don't here.
It's an opt-in for adult use, right? That's what the Leonard one is.
Could be.
Yeah. No, I have it on I'm trying to pull up the actual language.
Does this mean 33, or is it just you didn't have much information on it, Rick? This is another one that's added to the list now because it wasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's under the Addison Township.
Yeah.
Addison Township petition is what it is.
Yeah.
And that would this petition would require the village of Leonard initiation of an ordinance to allow adult use recreational marijuana establishment. That would give us one. One retailer, but also growers, processors, transporters, and micro businesses as well. So that's pretty forgiving. That's good.
Yeah. It's a small little area too, as far as there's even being space for stuff like that. It's pretty scattered around there.
Addison Leonard. Yep. So that's sad to see that the Addison Leonard is doing so poorly.
Oh, is it? I thought it was for allowing that stuff. And you said yes 90, no 30. I guess I misunderstood.
No, it's actually the other way around. It's no 91, I believe, in Leonard. And yes was the smaller number.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Yep. No's are 91 and yes is 32 on the marijuana petition in the village of Leonard. Also Addison Township, Leonard/Addison Township. Yep. So getting some interesting early numbers from some of these particular things. Again, let's talk about the small town dynamic too. One of the reasons why we'll probably be done with most of our reporting earlier tonight is because many of these communities are smaller. It doesn't take that long to count ballots when there's only 300 of them to count, you know? But that also has a dynamic which is typically skewed more conservative than progressive, especially in a midterm election when the Conservative Party is expected to gain seats both statewide and nationally, because the party that's not in power typically wins in midterm elections. So what about that dynamic? How interesting is it that cannabis again can break that stigma and be not just a progressive issue, but to be a people issue?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's we're definitely turning a corner. I think that for a long time, this issue was basically like 100% owned by the progressive community and the left. I think that now that it's that it's been out there a little bit more, like it's by virtue of what it is, the industry growing and stuff, I think it's changing into like an economic issue for people, for people who aren't weed people and stuff. And I think that the cross-cutting cleavages of the interests and stuff, and the people who have like these now shared interests is bigger, right? So we're making like a bigger tent. And so I just think that like that kind of like diversity on thought is just gonna happen in the community now that it's getting outside of like just kind of like the areas that the left is most comfortable in, like social justice and activism and things around like changing like inherently fucked up things and stuff. Like a lot of the activity and stuff is moving away from being exclusively that to being like, hey, how do we make sure we have markets that work, and how do we create opportunity and other stuff, and that kind of just it's just going to bring in like a wider demographic, and so it's just figuring out how to get all these people on the same page now is the tough thing for our constituency. Right.
Well, it's tough to build a tent where half the people in the tent want to shoot, the other half who just want to put flowers in their guns, right? So it's difficult, and obviously that's an oversimplification. And if you didn't like the way that I said that, fuck you, because I am who I am. The fact is, it is tough to kind of amalgam everybody together. when we have such divergent views. Here's one that just proves my point. Brandon Township, which is a proposal to allow limited marijuana facilities. Yes at 9:25, no at 8:24. 101 votes separating them. Again, 0 precincts reporting. So we're looking at some very close races for some proposals that seem pretty straightforward. There was a time when we believed that pretty much anything that was marijuana related was going to get a yes. In fact, some people who wanted to ban marijuana facilities articulated the language that would appear on the ballot so that a yes vote was actually to support a ban against the cannabis facilities, because they believed everybody that sees the word marijuana just says yes automatically. I'm not sure that's true any longer. Is it possible that we went through a curve where we had great acceptance and now our acceptance is sort of waning? Were we just a fad to some people? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, just by nature, man, like a lot of the stuff that people are asking people to vote on now is like we just saw, like we've been talking about, is more like you know what I'm saying, man? Like no one's trying to like legalize anything or like stop people from going to jail now. Like now they're like, hey, I would like for you to vote for me to have an opportunity to custody the shit out of these people, make a lot of money, you know? And like that's like a much different like
that's not how all the voters in these little towns look at it, though. I mean, it just
no, for sure. I get that. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's like, I just think it's different. Like, I just think we had so much more like our side, you know, had a lot. I think it was a lot easier to go when you were going in and saying like, oh, hey, we'd like to like decriminalize marijuana and make it like the lowest priority at the local level and, you know, stop arresting people and, you know, like shit like that. Or like, hey, we want to like create like a broad system to allow safe access and, you know, and like, I guess now I think with the proliferation of other dispensaries and shit like that, like it's really easy for communities to be like, hey, listen, we like weed and shit, I guess. Like, we don't really care. We don't have crazy rules telling you can't like grow weed in your house or something, but we don't really want a dispensary here. We're not down for that shit. You know, like, I just think it's like, I almost think that now that we're not asking them to like, to
save people's lives anymore.
Yeah, or to like pick a side, you know what I mean? Like because with legalization and shit, it was really easy to be like, cool, man, you might not like weed. Like I get it. I guess that's fine, but like I think we can all agree, like stop putting people in jail, like open up a way for people to have access, open up a way for entrepreneurs to invest in the community, you know? And I just think it's different, you know, just different now.
There was a natural, excuse me, there was a natural progression that we had to go through in a lot of communities. Excuse me, Chris. Medical first, then adult use, because you had to get the populace used to having marijuana facilities in their backyard by only having medical ones. And then later on, medical would be, of course, that foot in the door that allowed us to get an adult use license in there too. That's clearly a pattern that still persists with a number of communities just doing medical only. We talked earlier in this program and earlier today on Jazz Cabbage about the dangers of just a medical only ordinance and how difficult it makes the job of those particular businesses to survive until this adult use flip comes over. And Chris, it's true that we don't know if that'll happen in 2023 or 2024, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's like all just 100% speculative, you know what I mean? But yeah, I honestly wouldn't even like count on it, you know? I just think that it's probably an optics thing, man. You know, like they probably think that it's gonna like look the best if they go in and they're medical only. Maybe they are vertical and have like only a medical marijuana grow, which would be super unfortunate, but you know, like that's possible. So maybe this is something that could help them. But I just I don't know. That's tough. Like I ran a medical store when everyone was medical, right? There was just medical. And we were selling like, you know, that's back in like the days of like $4,000 wholesale pounds, you know, and like even doing it at that, like even when we were just absolutely crushing it, we would sit around and be like, man, like just think about how much this is actually going to really make whenever when we're allowed to sell to like everybody instead of like one out of like, like 15 people or something, so I think just it's tough to think about trying to survive in this market with the rec retail prices and wholesale prices what they are, to even just like I don't know. I know a couple stores that are doing it med, but like the ones, even those guys are like counting down until they can pop off their rec license,
Well, if you look at the border towns, and Chris, you're active in the community. Jamie, also with Meds Cafe, you guys are in the game. You know how important those border towns are, whether it's bordering on Indiana or Ohio or Wisconsin. And if you look at our chart of different communities today, 2 of them from Berrien County, Hager Township and Niles, both trying to add adult use facilities there. It's because there's just a huge demand coming across the border for this, because we did make it anybody 21 or over can come and shop at our stores. And that would, of course, make sense that it would drive cannabis law reform in small towns that you would not normally expect to be interested in this.
Yeah, no, I mean the border towns, I feel like some weeks single-handedly save like 20% of the wholesale market. Like it's just, and it's gonna be that way for a minute too. Like because even whenever the other states around us allow it, like so for example, people still like the Niles thing you're talking about, like that is 100% based on Chicago custody's demand, which is nuts because in their own state, they have legal marijuana. It just sucks. It's just really shitty. It's fucking expensive. It's like $100 for a hot dog water cart. And like in Michigan, you can get like 15 or 20 of those for $100, like, and that's just the truth. It's not even like exaggeration, It's just
that's a real pricing. Yes.
Yeah, that's just the prices now, So like, it's going to be like that. I remember when I was a kid, like, my super fucking NASCAR aunt and uncle would drive down to Indiana like every couple months and pick up just carton of cigarettes, like that's how it's going to be. Like, even if they legalize this shit in other states, like if you're a real stoner and you live in Ohio or Indiana, like it's probably going to make sense for you to drive an hour and a half to the Michigan border and get like, at that time, probably 20 or 30 of these vape carts for $100,
Well, let's talk about a timeline too. Let's say, for example, Indiana all of a sudden has a reversal of attitude and they adopt a positive cannabis law. It takes at least a year typically to adapt that, to create the rules around it, to launch that program. If you look at it in 2018, it took us all the way to December 2019 before we actually launched the adult use business program. So give it a year to do the rules and to get it off the ground. Then, Chris, it's several years before the pricing in that particular state reaches the same kind of a bottom, the same type of a floor that we're at right now.
And it might never, because what if they only have like 10 licensees or something? It's not like those guys are just going to be like, oh, let's fucking compete ourselves into the ground. Like, that's not going to happen.
Right. The back door, not supposed to have it, but the price fixing type of conversations where they say, look, I don't ever want to see an ounce in your store that sells for less than $200.
You won't even need to price fix like that. There'll only be fucking 9 other guys. You just got to get on Weed Maps and just look at their menus and be like, oh, okay, this is what an eighth costs. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Yeah. So Michigan's going to be more price competitive than any of those other new programs for years to come after they adopt those programs. So when we look at some of those border towns, it makes perfect sense that they would try to capitalize on what we're doing right here. So let's see if we can get some more election results going on. I keep checking Genesee County because I live in Genesee County, and I would like to see Clio actually do something intelligent with cannabis, even though Clio is just 2 provisioning centers as a medical only.
It's killing those guys. That's nuts.
Isn't it crazy when we have advanced so far? It's almost like a step backwards for someone to say,
especially a place like that has such like a caregiver legacy,
Well, in Clio, many people don't know, South south of Clio is Mounts Township, which has a ton of cannabis businesses, Morris Township. And then east of Clio is Thetford Township, which has several cannabis businesses, including the
Eric
Brian.
So it has for years, yeah.
Is retail already. So why would you just dip your toe in the water if you have all these examples of success surrounding you? There's just a lot of old people. I'm sorry. There's just a lot of old.
It's what we experienced when we were in Calcallan, and which is one of the places that's going to be decided tonight by voters. And there are elderly people that they weren't listening to. This doesn't decide whether or not cannabis can come into the town. They were actually in part viewing it as if it was, cannabis, yes or no, not simply adult use stores on top of all the other activity. And one of the people on our panel was a supervisor from the adjacent town, Bangor, that has opted in and has benefited from it. And his point for being there for the people was to tell them that, in our town, we benefit from it. It hasn't caused the issues that people are talking about. Right next door, man.
I do have an update on some voting. Proposal 1 in the state of Michigan, currently with a 2.5% of precincts reporting. Proposal 1, 130,000 to 52,000 on the no's. Yeses prevail with 130. Proposal 2, yeses at 120, no's at 64. And proposal 3, which is the abortion proposal, yeses at 123, no at 66. So all three of those are still tracking to the yes vote. However, proposal 3 is the one with the tightest margin, although it is still leading by 2-1 in voting. So.
I wonder how many people are showing up. That's only 200,000 votes.
Yeah.
Or so. Yeah.
It looks to me like what we're talking about is the absentee ballots that have already been counted. It seems like that's fair to say. All right.
Well, it's particularly since it's not 9:00 yet either. That would also make sense.
Yeah, it's possible that some of these clerks might be like actually almost like inundated, with just general because that's the thing. It's only a few hundred people, right? But here's the thing, man. Like most of the time, only fucking half these people vote. So if the turnout is even up like 10 or 15% for the clerk, like to them, that is like so much extra work, like then it, like me and my friends talk about that a lot. It's like, what the fuck do you think would happen if everybody who was registered to vote went out and voted one day? Like it would be like fucking pandemonium, bro. Like there would be lines never everywhere,
Chris, I don't think they ever print enough ballots for that to happen, right? They really don't.
No, like I would literally explode, like if that happened. When it would just be insane. I don't think it, which is in general America, it's fucked up. Come on, like.
Yeah. Let's see. Still looking for more updated.
Some of these changed are in cities, and they changed the charter. There are charter amendments.
It's true.
Some of them are in the townships, which can only do the initiative in certain ways because of the provision in the MRTMA. But this is a lot for one night. This is more than all the other, at least successful ones combined.
It's been. Go ahead. No, I was gonna say I think this is the first year that like it's been really 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 implemented. The last couple of years, people have tried them. A lot of them have been activist, and just maybe like a couple people doing it business, as a business play. But like I know, like in California, it's like that is how almost every marijuana facility is is created is at the ballot. You know, just the commercial real estate and everything else is a lot more intense there and stuff. So a lot of my colleagues and stuff, like that's where I learned about a lot of this was people who do it in California. Their petition season is really nuts. But like in California, they don't have like the Zoning Enabling Act, which this is the law that makes it so that you can't just write like the most fanciful, like, you know, ordinance. But in California, they don't have any of that shit. So if you wanted to, you could write an ordinance in California and that was like, hey, this city's going to opt in for one dispensary. Let me tell you where it's going to be at 1327 Main Street, the fucking one, the one that I got, you know, or you could probably put something in there that's like, oh, there's going to be a dispensary here, but it has to be next to a Starbucks. And guess what? I own the fucking Starbucks and all the stuff next to it. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff, and you can set all sorts of like crazy ways to like get selected in the application process. And so like, that's like a really big, like investment play there is you go and you get the signatures. You spend a shitload on the actual political campaign. Like you probably are buying off politicians, getting people on board and stuff like, and it's like a really established thing there. And I just think it's going to take a minute for people to figure out how to do that in Michigan. Cause our shit's a lot different. Like our electoral system's a lot more complex. Surprisingly, we have a lot more municipalities here than California does. Like there's like 40 counties in California or something. There's like 83 in Michigan. And then every single one of these municipalities, the township, the city clerks, and all these guys, like they basically have like a fucking fiefdom where they can do whatever they want, which all of us have learned in various lawsuits and stuff with different county clerks. And for the most part, the law is set up that they can do like whatever the fuck they want. And even if you do prove in court that they fucked you, they just have to be like, ooh, my bad, you know, and then the election has already happened. And so there's no way to get like judicial relief on that, you know, like the judge can't, you know, like get in his fucking DeLorean and go back in time and make him put it on the ballot, you know? So it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just Michigan's
it's a
lot
moral
different.
Victory. It's not a real one. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you win, but like, who cares? You're still poor and don't have a dispensary, you know? Like, so I just think like it's Michigan's just a much different and more complex politically than California and most states actually. And so I just think it's going to take people a long time to figure out how to do this successfully, you know, for what they're trying to do.
Auburn Hills now reporting 1,039 yes votes on their adult use marijuana establishment's proposal, 605 no votes. So that's a pretty good lead, although still very early in the reporting for that. Clarkston's medical marijuana proposal has no results coming in yet. Kego Harbor, Charter Amendment, Kego Harbor, no results yet. Cannabis establishments for Lathrop Village. Remember, we don't like this one. Lathrop Village, the yes is 544 and the no is 427. So it's possible that we're catching up on that. Well, actually, the gap is widening. It was 101 previously. Now it's a little less than 120. So if that passes, then Lathrop Village will enact a ban on all cannabis businesses, period.
It's weird.
Brandon Township, proposal to allow limited marijuana facilities in Brandon Township, which would be one adult use retailer, but prohibit everything else. No is leading in that election, 2,025 to 1,799 yes votes. So Brandon Township doesn't look so good at this particular moment. Trying to get information on Bay County, Jamie, so I can take a look at our friends.
So, yeah, in Clarkston, a lot of the local officials were complaining. Adam brought up the article that Chris had seen where the local officials were complaining about the signature gatherers being from out of state and not knowing who's actually behind this and all that kind of stuff. So they were kind of campaigning against it, which could be showing up.
I will say that in Royal Oak Township, with 50% of precincts reporting, now we're talking 50% of precincts reporting their ballot proposal, which would give them a medical only scenario. Yes vote at 390, no vote at 259. Now that's a significant gap considering the number of votes potentially out there. It seems like that one we might be willing to call that one pretty soon here for Royal Oak Township if this continues, if the way that this voting goes is extended.
Ooh, just looked at that township on a map. That's a fucking banger for somebody. Someone's gonna. That's a
good one to have, isn't it?
Yeah, gonna get into that shop. Holy shit, that's like basically a backdoor into Detroit, but like, also kind of to Oakland County.
Any news at the end of the alphabet with Zilwaukee?
Haven't looked at Zilwaukee yet, but I will in just a moment. The village of Leonard. Remember, we talked about Leonard as being part of Addison Township. That's a positive marijuana petition. Village of Leonard, 100% of precincts reporting no at 161 and yes at 160. That
Whoa
has failed.
That happened in Lapeer, just a little bit north of there. There was the vote difference was like 3 or 4 or something like that.
That's
this
nuts.
is there were only 221 votes cast. So when you lose by 100 and there were only 221 votes cast, it's a decisive loss.
Oh, I thought you said 161 to 160.
No, 161.
Yes, I also thought you said that.
Oh,
okay.
My bad. Sorry, Cannabis.
I was like, we gotta trump that shit, like storm the fucking.
Yep.
Recount.
Yeah, that one vote
Yeah.
mandatory recount, right?
Yeah.
All right, not to be there. Also, it would be nice for the people there if they had one, but it's not incredibly consequential. Some of these other places help get the ball rolling a little bit. If we're more successful than not, could be a good night.
You ask about Zilwaukee. Let's see if we can find out some information.
This is one of the ones that was worded for one license for retail.
That's correct. Zilwaukee Township has just one retail. Looks like 9.67% of turnout. 14,900 people voted out of 154,000. That kind of sucks, people. Come on, you can do better. And it is 17% of precincts reporting. Let's see if we can get the Zilwaukee information up, James. There are so many things here. Let's see. Zilwaukee Township initiated ordinance repeal of marijuana prohibition with 17% of the votes tallied. Still 0-0. They haven't posted anything on that one. Sorry for the little dramatic pause there, but I just couldn't resist.
17% of the voters just didn't check off the box on that one. That's all.
No, also Village of Chesaning Street improvements bond proposal has no data on it too. The school district for the city of Bay City operating millage has only 2 votes cast. Clearly it's too early. They'll update. But as we saw with Leonard, some of the smaller communities do come in with 100% pretty quickly. We just have to keep on it. I keep trying to find information about Wayne County's election system. Belleville, Flat Rock, and Taylor all have proposals, and there's just nobody reporting anything. It's the Michigan.totalvote.com is not reporting anything. So
Belleville was like an opt out, right, of something and they're already operating there. Is that?
Belleville is not a ban or an opt out. I think it's a move from medical to adult use.
Got ya.
By the way,
it adds stuff too, like social lounges and shit like that.
I will say this. I'm looking now at gubernatorial election. I'm sorry, U.S. Senate election results. Currently leading in Georgia, Raphael Warnock, Democratic Party. In New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan, Democratic Party. North Carolina, Cherry Beasley, Democratic Party. Ohio, Tim Ryan at 54.4%. His lead is increasing over DeWine. He's a Democrat. And in Pennsylvania, the hotly contested Pennsylvania, with 8% of precincts reporting, John Fetterman has a 75 to 25% lead over fake Dr. Oz.
Dog, not even Oprah was down for him.
Nope. That 75% with 8% reporting is a huge number.
We all are in agreement here that we are collectively rooting for Herschel Walker, though, right?
I like liars who pay for abortions for their illegal their baby mamas. Yeah, right.
Just for comedy's sake.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I don't even know who that is. She already had another kid with him. Like,
yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, just to have like funny shit to talk about in politics. Yes, I'm down for it. Like.
You enjoy funny things in politics.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like the Herschel Walker thing. Like, yeah, if I wouldn't vote for him or anything, but if it happened, I'd be like, all right, cool. It's gonna be hilarious. We'll see how this. Except they're in there for like 6 years though. That's a long time to deal with that shit.
Can you imagine how manipulated? See, my problem is we all know this to be true. You can easily be manipulated by the voices you hear, and for someone who's not on their game and questioning what they hear, he could just become a puppet for his Republican masters. I guess I hate to put it in those type of Frank Herbert Dune type of language, but you'd hate to see somebody with an inferior intellect be put in a situation where they can just be completely dominated by others.
Or he gets pissed off at him one time for that, and then ends up helping.
You think he just punches him,
out of spite? Well, I don't know, maybe. But I just mean more like just changing his view based on being irritated by those guys. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about the show, the potentially comedic shit show that Chris describes that he would be entertained with if stuck with those cards.
Yeah. Oh, hey, we got some. Let's see. So I'm really the South Haven one. I'm really interested in. I also think that would be a great place for a store. And
yeah.
They don't have any stuff for it yet, but they're starting to put stuff in from the other cities, and it's also right above it is the disincorporation of Breedsville. It's also at 00.
I'm looking at Bay County election results as posted by M Live in order to see our friends in Cawcolin and his proposal in Gibson Town are working. Let's see. Gypsy Moth Suppression Program. Wow. They have quite a few proposals.
Well, after all the weird stuff in Cawcolin, to just reject this, they've had medical for a while, and those stores obviously are struggling when all the places around them have opted in for regular adult use.
I'm sure I remember this correctly, but I believe our friends at Cawcolin told us that in 4 medical provisioning centers open in Cawcolin, and they were down to just 1, and that the other 3 were doing what Chris described earlier, is just basically having a license and waiting for adult use to come around so that they can flip it, that we're not open for business servicing patients. So difficult it is for medical to survive. People would just pay rent a bill than they would try to run a business. Crazy. And I'm still waiting for Gibson and Collin Township election results to come up. This is sort of exciting, guys, though. Yeah. What did I have? Let's see.
I'm just looking at Niles Charter Township. They've got like 25% of well, that's just the county, so I actually don't know what the city has. But so far it's the yeses are at 356 and the no's are at 435.
Oof. So Niles is getting beat up, huh?
Yeah, and that's like 20% of the precincts in, so it's starting to build a trend there a little bit, you know.
With 7% of precincts reporting, Gretchen Whitmer in the race for Michigan governor has a 57.3% lead over Tudor Dixon, who has 41.2%. So that's a good lead, but it's still, they just updated it to 8%. And according to CBS News, this race is too early to call. Clearly it is, with only 8% of precincts reporting. But that 57, it's now 56.9 to 41.7. So
the thing I'm looking at said, okay, it only has 7.37% of the vote on it. That's why the numbers are different. You have 8%, a more updated number. Okay.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see some of these national races. Raphael Warnock versus Herschel Walker, Fetterman versus Oz. Normally, I would not be paying attention to any of these things were it not for the tenuous nature of Democratic control of the houses of Congress.
Like that astronaut dude, he's running in Arizona. I think that's a really close one as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. I never remember his name, but that is a close race.
His last name's Kelly, and he has a brother that was also an astronaut, and I can only remember, you know what I'm saying? I can only remember one name. I don't know which one it is, and then they're fucking identical twins, and they were both astronauts, so it's just like it's really hard to keep them straight, you know?
That's pretty cool, actually. Identical twins at both.
It's a really hardcore like family. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you imagine just being like their like little brother, and you fucking work at like Jiffy Lube or something? You know, like
you'd never win any arguments. You'd never beat anybody at wrestling.
Even if you were like a doctor or something, they just like hate on you all the time and shit.
That's hilarious.
I got Dana with 6.66% of the vote. With the lead 53.6% to 44.3%.
That's pretty tight. That's much tighter than the gubernatorial election. Yes. Oh gosh.
I'm ready for these election commercials to be done though. Like holy shit. It's like even on the streaming services, man, it's just boom, boom, boom.
I can't even watch sports on television because it's so polluted by messages of idiocy from people that I don't respect. So, yeah.
Messages of idiocy.
Speaking of idiocy, Jamie, your Zilwaukee Township still is not reporting any vote yet. I'm also not getting any report yet from Bay County, which has 2, in addition to the Collin Township. It also has Gibson Township. Gibson Township would be a ban. We do not like the Gibson Township proposal, but it is out there.
So, something to look at too, man, like, when we, like next election cycle, maybe in the lead up to it, maybe we can do some stuff with Chad Watch. I'd be interested to know, like, on these local initiatives and stuff, like how many of these people like fucking did a mailer or a commercial or went and knocked on a door. You know what I mean? Like, I bet not many of them, because I know every time that I got hired or somebody wanted to hire me for this stuff, like their only question was, how many signatures do we need? How much money to get on the ballot? And then I'd be like, okay, cool. But this is like literally fucking like 15% of the equation. And they'd be like, no, bro, people like weed. I got this, So I think that's something either way, I think is like a really big part of it. Like politics is people, right? Like you can't, like, you got to do more than just, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not running like unopposed for city commissioner. You know what I'm saying? Like there's another, they can vote another way, It's not like totally in the bag yet.
Our friends in Cawcolin specifically did do flyers based on zip codes. They had some very tasteful flyers created. They did several campaigns, including one, I think, the week prior to the election. When we were speaking with them, we had interviewed them on my show, and I believe that's what they talked about. They actually showed me pictures of one of the flyers that they had already sent out, which again was very tastefully done with a couple of people who are well known to the people who lived in that community. So everybody's got former elected officials or people who are big businessmen that most of the folks know. When you get a couple of well-known people in your community that say you should vote yes, it makes a difference to people. It really does.
For sure.
Oh, coffee is so good. Oh. Yeah, I'm still looking at 7.24 on Oakland County results. Some of them are bigger. Okay.
Well, it looks like there's we're not talking about a ton of success so far from what little information that we are getting.
No, man, these usually aren't successful,
Yeah, we talked about earlier tonight. We talked about how there was a time when we felt anything with cannabis on the ballot was going to be a win. That time has failed. We're on the downhill slope. We've already reached that apex. Now people are more questioning. People that were willing to grab onto it already did. So the only people that are left in the state are those that you have to really convince. And as Chris discussed just a second ago, a lot of people that are running these ballot proposals don't want to put in the time to convince the people that this is the right thing to do. And they'll fail because of it. And then they'll blame other factors. They won't blame themselves for not doing a very good public relations campaign or a follow-up. It's not that expensive to do these flyers either, Chris, right? Some of these communities are pretty small, so it wouldn't be that huge of an investment of funds to do things right, would it?
No, I mean, not like funds, but definitely time, resources. You know what I mean? Like I mean, it's like what you just said, man. The best campaigns for stuff are when like the best political campaigns are campaigns where there's broad support in the community for what you're doing. So like ultimately, I think what would make the biggest difference for people is to go to all like the community meetings and stuff and just go and recruit people and meet them and be like, listen, man, I'm trying to open this business in the community, and these guys who run the city aren't about that shit. And I'm going to run this campaign because I'm trying to do this thing for my family or what, you know what I mean? And just be like, have like a real conversation with them and then get people to fuck with you and support you and go out and like, and get people on like your committees and stuff and go to the meetings and get people that, like you said, like known people in the community to go knock on doors and be like, hey, listen, my buddy's trying to open a shop and the people who run the city don't want to let him do it. He needs to opt in. Please go out and vote for this shit. This is going to be like X amount of jobs. And he's cleaning that. I mean, a lot of times it's like, hey, he's going to buy the building from me that's been in my family for a lot of years and he's really going to help everyone out. Like, can you please go do this? Like, that's how like real shit happens in local government. You have to go do that though. You have to go have conversations and do like the political groundwork, but the actual campaign material and stuff like that. Yeah, that is very cheap, but I think these guys just don't want to. They want to turn it into something where you can only do that, where they'll just be like, oh, I can send like X amount of like postcards out and I got it in the bag, like you're going to have to like go knock on doors and talk to people and then go talk to them again and ask them to vote. And, like it's a whole thing, man.
We have a final vote with 100% of precincts reporting Lathrop Village, which has that ban we've been talking about, ban all of them. The vote comes down as yes, 14-14, and no, 12-11. So the ban of all cannabis businesses in Lathrop Village is complete.
There you go.
Keego Harbor still not reporting any vote for their proposal. Auburn Hills has a proposal which is currently leading by 1039 to 605. So that's a 435 vote lead. So that seems nice, but you never know how long these are going to be. Clarkston's medical marijuana proposal still not reporting yet. Keeping you up to date on some of these. So Addison Township's move failed, and Lathrop Village ban was successful.
Hey, just as an aside, the newly drawn 12th congressional district of Michigan has been called in favor of Rashida Tlaib.
Yay! We like Rashida.
Yep.
Brandon Township proposal to allow facilities. No's are leading yeses by 2025 to 1799. It's looking like a tough night for Oakland County communities. I'll tell you right now. Ballot proposal for Royal Oak Township. Royal Oak Township is that one with medical only, which has the identical language to Imlay City and Keego Harbor, with 50% of precincts reporting 390 yes to 259 no votes. So the yeses on top of the no votes significantly in that race, with only 50% of precincts reporting. And again, Village of Leonard failing. Just running across that again. All right. Still searching for information about these Bay County races as well. We have races in other counties too. Muskegon has Eggleton Township. Benzie has Frankfort. Grand Traverse has Green Lake Township. Again, I know we've been watching Berrien County for Hager Township and Niles. Livingston has Brighton, which is a nice big city too. Livingston City, Shiawassee has Langsburg, which is a ban. Memphis City has those two bans, and that's in Macomb/St. Clair County. Emmett has the city of Petoskey, Van Buren, South Haven Township, Mecosta, Wheatland Township, and Oceana has Newfield Township. And we are still watching for results in Zilwaukee, in Saginaw.
It's like,
yes.
I'm just looking at some of these other races. The new District 7, Alyssa Slotkin is currently getting pretty badly beaten by Tom Barrett. This has 7.3% precincts reporting.
That tough district was redrawn in a way that really disfavored the Democratic candidate.
John James is beating the shit out of Carl Malanga with 0% reporting. But still 9,000 votes to 5,700.
I wonder if that's just mail-in, because that's a Macomb County thing, right?
Michigan U.S. House District 10.
Yeah, I believe that's Macomb County.
Yeah, I know over where I live, the 3rd congressional district is is something a lot of people are looking at. John Gibbs, he's fucking crazy. And he beat Peter Meyer, which is a pretty moderate Republican. People really seem to like him here, so I don't really know what happened there, but it's looking. I think
he's not a Trumpian.
No,
right,
he voted to impeach Trump. That's why they penalized him. Yep.
Yeah, but like they just shit all over him here, and the guy's like veteran, and his family is like Meyer. You know what I'm saying? Like this. It's like
Justin Amash's former seat.
Yeah, like he was like, "Oh, I thought you guys elected Amash for like 15 years. I thought we were like thinking for ourselves and stuff." And they're like, "Nah, bro, like we definitely like you fucked
That's
up."
funny.
But it could be a good pickup for Hillary Schlotton, who's run a couple times here, and I think she'd be good on our constituency issue. You know.
I'll say John Fetterman. We've been watching in the Pennsylvania Senate race against Dr. Mehmet Oz. Fetterman still leads with 14% reporting, but instead of 75% of the vote, he's down to 64.2. I think we all knew that 75% was not sustainable, and that he would be finishing in a much closer race. Tim Ryan in Ohio, Democrat, still leads, but it's 50.9%, not 54 as it was previously, although 40% of districts reporting there. And Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire, 60% roughly. And Raphael Warnock, 51.3% over Herschel Walker, 56% of precincts reporting there. So that's a pretty solid percentage. Our experience tells us that the places that count votes last are sometimes the urban centers. And urban centers typically skew more progressive. So in the later stages of vote counting, I would imagine we would see more of a progressive surge. I don't know if that goes counter to your experience, Chris, or what.
No, yeah, I think that seems to be that's what I would think, that the urban cities definitely spoke more progressive, and takes them a lot longer to get counted and stuff. Like, I mean, I have to imagine. I mean, I was reading on MLive and stuff a second ago that there's hour-long line at 8:00 at the like downtown voting locations in Grand Rapids. So like that's probably going to be like that in larger cities. So it could be kind of a minute before we see stuff like that. Like actually, there's like almost no Kent County, results up, and there's usually stuff rolling in about now. So I think it's probably just a little bit of a higher turnout, and like Grand Rapids City, like those are 80% Democrat voters.
We've talked a lot tonight about ballot proposals in local communities, which includes some villages and some townships. But most oftentimes, those villages and townships do not have the ability to initiate a ballot proposal, because the right to do that is contained within the Michigan Home Rule Cities Act, which really covers all cities, or most cities, and just a very few townships. But an interesting little widget was thrown into the language of the 2018 MI Legalize MRTMA proposal. Jamie, would you like to explain why villages and townships have the ability to do this where they would not for any other issue?
Yeah. Well, just to back up a little bit, there was a legislative attempt for there to allow retail stores. 2014, I think, was that one. Pretty sure when when Eileen Kowal pulled her bill.
2014.
And the other one went next on. So in that, it just for the same purpose of what's been playing out, I was actually able to get this language into that legislation with some help of some people. Dennis Shornack, who was still working at the time in the governor's office, and it was a work group within the governor's office that was looking at this legislation at the time. So with his help, we were able to get in this amendment or section that would allow for the villages and townships not normally able to have initiatives. Now, if the local decision makers put forth a change in, an ordinance or something like that, people can have petitions signed to decide whether or not to allow that new change in law to go through by referendum. But to initiate something new, you cannot do unless you're incorporated under the Home Rules Act on a local level. That's all municipalities and a few villages. So it's a provision in the MRTMA, because that stuff didn't pass when I was able to have input. That was something that was pretty early on in that discussion, because we really wanted it, a few years before. So that's why it can happen. Many years ago, that whole process started to be able to allow it. Now we're seeing it play out. It's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. The more important thing, though, is that our issue has that and no others do. And one of the reasons why is because our industry was created by language generated through the people as opposed to language generated by the legislative process. One of the reasons we hate the MMFLA so much is because it was created by legislative process, which means it's full of things that don't function properly, but were intended to give someone some kind of a commercial advantage. So the MMFLA has a lot of restrictions in it that we fixed when we wrote the language of the adult use ballot proposal. Jamie being one of that intimate group, and then there was a much larger group which had input I was a part of too. So we fixed a lot of things that were a problem with the medical program, and man, there were a lot of them to fix.
Yep. We also purposely did not include some stuff and purposely did include some stuff from the medical program to make the parallel programs be a little smoother and the eventual transition into one program be easier.
Jerry Nadler, Democrat, wins re-election as New York's governor, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, former spokesperson for President Trump, wins the Arkansas governor's race.
Oh, Jesus.
And with 11% in, Governor Whitmer with a 53% to 45.5% lead over Tudor Dixon. I'm sorry, 11%. It just now updated again. It went from 9 to 10 to 11 real quick. But 53 to 45.5. That's a rapidly shrinking lead, and that's something to be worried about if you are a Whitmer supporter.
To be good to know all the districts that still need to be counted and where they're headed, and then people know which one of those would be more likely to be leaning one way or the other. And I remember with the first, 4 years ago, waiting for Dana to be confirmed. It was so close for so long.
That's current Attorney General Dana Nessel you're referring to in her 2018 battle against Tom Leonard for AG. And Leonard had a lead, and we were all sweating it out. We were not certain she could do it. But because, as we just spoke not that long ago about, oftentimes urban centers, which are more progressive, report later.
Detroit hadn't been hit yet, and that's where a lot of action took place.
Yep. And as I talked about earlier today, Richard Clement and Representative Cynthia Johnson both reporting great turnout in their precincts in Detroit. That should give us all a lot of hope for maybe a late night push in some of the election results as those urban centers complete their reporting process. Whitmer just jumps up 0.5% from 53 to 53.5 over Dixon, who goes from 45.5 down to 45, still reporting just 11% in. I'm still not seeing results for Gibson or Collin Township either in Bay County. And by the way, Michigan.gov, Secretary of State elections reporting website has absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm getting more information from ABC and MLive than I am from our own state government. So that's just how it goes.
Been looking at Taylor for the marijuana proposal and not seeing anything reported yet, at least on the basic information that I'm looking at.
I'm still not seeing anything for Clio either, and Clio is not that large of a community. So,
What other
I
Wayne
remember
County,
a time. Go ahead.
What other Wayne County places are there?
Wayne County has Belleville, Flat Rock, and Taylor.
No reporting there. And no reporting there. And Flat Rock's pretty small.
Yeah. Well, pretty small communities often mean it's just a couple of people in a table, a folding table they bought from Walmart or what have you, sitting around in folding chairs. So it might take them a little bit longer. And paper ballots too. I like paper ballots though because it's that indisputable record that sometimes people just need to be able to see for themselves in order to believe it. And sometimes when people see it, they still don't believe it. You know how that goes.
There's a whole attempted takeover of the government based on it.
Yes.
And still a bunch of people who think that the results are not correct.
No results either from Kego Harbor or Clarkston. Auburn Hills still has the same numbers we reported previously. And the reason I keep coming back to Oakland County is because I can check 6 or 7 different elections on the same website. It's much easier than refreshing my page and jumping from screen to screen. So I'm not trying to favor Oakland County over anything else. It's just the one place I can get the most information to share with you.
$1.8 million absentee ballots cast.
Is that a record, Jamie?
It says strong turnout. I can look at it, see if anybody's calling it a record. That would be close, but short of a record.
So it's looking like with 50% in Niles Township, it's the no's are at 940 and the yeses are at 857.
That's less than 100 then. Is that a closing of that gap between no's and yes?
No, it's I think it was about the same last time. So I don't know that it's I think it might be closing a little bit, but if I had to put money on it, I don't think it's going to go,
Niles, yeah, it would be suck. How about Hager Township? That's also in Berrien County. Do you have any access to that?
Pull her up. Hager. Does not look like they have anything in yet. Yeah, no, they don't have anything in yet.
Man, why is it so difficult to get some of this election results? Some communities, of course, there's no state requirement to report early results. Okay, so when we see some of these, it's more of a voluntary thing that are done by the individual communities. That's why some of them are reporting and some of them are not. It's very frustrating. I had hoped to have better news to report to people tonight. I was hopeful that we would have some success with some of these.
Do we have one success to look at, or one on its way?
We have a couple that are on their way, but it's so early. You
Is that
still
Auburn
have
Hills?
less than 50%. Yeah.
I feel good about Auburn Hills. Feel good about Belleville too, because I think I know who's involved on like the pro weed side of that, and I think they know what they're doing.
Sam?
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. I
Someone
imagine
doesn't like to do interviews, right? Yeah.
I imagine the super secretive guy Sam. Yes, but yeah, he knows what he's doing. So
he's got a place there. And,
yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not real sure about he's already up and operating. So
he wants the social use lounge and some other stuff.
What's up.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, this place is cool. Blue Sky.
Yeah. I haven't been by it, but we're in the shop. So.
Well, we do have a little bit of an update. Previously unreported Kego Harbor now reporting for their cannabis amendment, which would, by the way, be medical only. Yes, at $3.95 and no, $3.57. What a tight race. It still says 0% precincts reporting. But it also
0%.
Yeah, very, very tight. Very tight.
Final statewide vote totals may not come in until Wednesday.
That's true. We've seen it before. I remember going to bed thinking that we had defeated some bad proposals in the state legislature, and waking up in the morning and getting a call telling me that they passed at 4:20 in the morning. It's never over until everybody shuts the lights off and goes home. You never know what's going to happen.
A lot of long lines remained after some polls closed.
Happy to see that. People excited about the election. They know how important it is. Jamie, I'm still getting nothing in Zilwaukee for you. Sorry about that. I know it's a big one for you. Have, for no apparent reason, just fascinated with this particular election.
I kind of am. I'd really like to know about Cucaulin, just because of our involvement in it and working with those guys that are, actually doing it.
I'll tell you, I tried the Bay County clerk's website, and they are not posting any data for elections. It seems there was no link, no way to find any information. So I'm not sure how MLive is going to find that info if Bay County's not reporting it themselves. But MLive is what I'm trying to use in order to find that result, and they're really not showing. In fact, actually, they got results from the Saginaw special election millage, but nothing from the Bay County stuff.
The DOJ is monitoring 5 Michigan cities for compliance with voting rights laws: Detroit, Flint, Grand Rapids, Pontiac, and Southfield.
I don't know if this is related to that or not, but there was a township cop in the parking lot of my polling establishment just watching in case anything went wrong. I don't know. By the way, Fetterman at 56.4%. Yes, for Fetterman over Oz with 22% of precincts reporting. Raphael Warnock, 50%, straight up 50%, with 61% of the precincts reporting. That's getting close to being a final number. Ted Budd in North Carolina.
Did you say those numbers correctly? It's a split right now with 61% reporting.
It's not a split. Raphael Warnock has 50%, but Herschel has less than 50% because there are other candidates running.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So, but 61%, that's a pretty significant number of precincts. It's almost 2/3. So,
but you need it. This is the one. Is this Alabama?
It's Georgia
or Georgia? Is it one of them? If he didn't get at least 50% of the vote, that there's
a runoff, right?
It's a runoff for the top two. Yeah.
Hmm.
Or if nobody got at least 50%.
Other places have rather strange, policies as far as elections go. And they're not strange to the people who live there. They're just strange to us because we don't have them in ourselves.
So Trevor says he thinks Taylor's going to vote yes. There are a bunch of vote no propaganda spreaders at the polls. And South Dakota is not looking good early on.
We were worried about that one. The South Dakota had a cannabis proposal that was passed by the people and was ruled unconstitutional by the courts. So this is their second time around, but this proposal isn't the same as the first one. So a lot of pundits were not very high on South Dakota's success today. Speaking of high on, should probably light this back up. I still have the same numbers for Kego Harbor, and still no results for Clarkston, and the same results for Auburn Hills currently in Oakland County.
Long lines reported in Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and East Lansing.
Those are all Democratic strongholds.
There was an early morning hiccup in Detroit. I don't know what it was.
Oh God, that's going to give someone an opportunity to complain about the election results, as if they needed another excuse to say, no, we don't believe I lost.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, some fucking, some don't tread on me right now is all like, oh, they're not going to be able to like wrap their head around. It's like, yeah, like there was lines at like three of the biggest fucking liberal voting, voting blocks in the state, man. That's how it's going to, like, they're huge population centers, but yeah, no, I've actually heard that too. Like, cause colleges in session right now. I've heard like lines at like every MSU polling place, like just like fucking astronomical is everywhere. So that's probably a good sign for blue team,
Imagine how college campuses with active social group, social organization structure are reacting to this election with Roe v. Wade being overturned earlier this year and having an abortion amendment on the ballot itself. I have to imagine that this is the issue that motivates the very most female college students to get out and vote, and that their other college students are pushing them to participate to a greater degree than ever before. This isn't about some political issue. This is about a healthcare issue. Very seldom I think it's true. Very seldom do we get to vote on healthcare issues in a statewide election. I think we have to have the best turnout at the college level ever, Chris. Now that you mentioned that there's long lines at these polling places, it would certainly make sense to me that we would.
Yeah, no, I think the turnout will be pretty good there, and I think especially just like with how things are politically, I think that people are trying to double down on their core demographics and stuff. So I think college vote will be pretty big. I think kind of like now that people are actually back in colleges, like it's not like it's not virtual or they're not at home. I think like it's a little bit easier to get those people to actually vote, like like they're in college. It's a pretty captive audience. You basically, for the most part, can almost tell if they've done it or not. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a lot easier of a universe to play in. So
makes sense. Jamie, are you having any success finding results, or are you doing something different?
No, I'm keep on refreshing the page to see if the results will magically appear in places where they haven't been.
That is what we're all doing here. We're all hitting the refresh button on our open tabs just to try and get fresh results.
Hey, I have to step away for a second, but I'll be right back. Okay.
You bet.
Nice way of saying he's bowing out because he's really bored.
He's gotta go pee. That's what he's trying to not say to everybody. I'm cool. I understand. Gladwin has both Clement and Tobacco Township. I wonder if they have election results out.
Well,
and it's a lot of this, folks, waiting around for election results to come in. That's why people get paid to stand in front of a big TV screen and chew the fat for a while they wait for numbers to update.
It's like the proposals are doing better than the gubernatorial race, which kind of makes sense.
Do you have results for any of the other states that were voting on cannabis proposals, Jamie? You said South Dakota was not doing well. What about North? Do you have that?
I don't know. I don't have any of them. I just heard going off of what Christian from South Dakota was saying. I haven't looked. I guess I'm kind of interested in Colorado also in the entheogen race there.
By the way, Herschel Walker has taken the lead in the Georgia Senate race and is now ahead at 49.2%.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Morons, man. Come on. I'm sorry. That's mean of me to say. I shouldn't say that really, but.
Well, let's see how it ends up because as we talked about, this is a very tight race. Raphael Warnock just had 50%. Now it's 49.2 takes the lead. So he's got to be right in that zone. It's possible that those late returns from some of the urban areas might help to push the Democratic candidate over there. Herschel Walker's just unfit. I don't mind saying that he is unfit for that role. And I think there's a lot of other people that believe the same thing too.
Supporting him doesn't make any sense, man. I guess that's what I meant to say. I was kind of mean about it, but
By the way, Tom Barrett's lead is dropping. He is now ahead 56.7, down from 57.3. That's a half a percentage point. 22% of precincts reporting, so that could still turn around. Although it still looks pretty strong for Barrett at this point. Governor Whitmer with her thinnest lead of the night, 13% in. She leads 52.5 to 45.9 for Tudor Dixon. Sorry, just 14% in now. It updated to 52 even to 46.4 for Tudor Dixon. That's really 3 percentage points away from each other.
That's too close.
Yes, 14% is not enough precincts for us to make a determination at this point.
Decriminalize hallucinogenic compounds for adults 21 and over in Colorado. 20% of the vote in. Yes, 55.3%. To no, 44.7%.
Well, that's good to know. It's a positive result on the entheogenic issue.
Oops, sorry.
At this particular point in the race for Attorney General, Matthew DePerno leads 56.4 over Dana Nessel, 40.9%. With 2% of the expected votes. And according to CBS News, that's a radical reversal from what we had reported earlier. And by the way, the governor's race has 14% reported. The Secretary of State race has 12% reported, but Attorney General's race has only 2% reported. So that's kind of crazy. Proposal 2, expanding voting access, is in a statistical heat, 50.7% yes, no at 49.3%. That's really close. That's 1 percentage point, 1.5 percentage points really essentially away from each other. And proposal 3, the right to an abortion, currently leading at yes with 56.3% over the no at 43.7%. 56.3% also corresponds to the number by which we won the 2018 legalization ballot proposal, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm on channel NBC here, Detroit 4 with 5.2%, and Dana up 51 to 47. Still very close on the votes.
I'm happy to hear that, Jamie. I knew that those numbers, which I was looking at, didn't seem right, especially since the percentage of reporting was so off as compared to those other 2 races I mentioned.
It's the closest, though, of the big 3 of Jocelyn Benson, the governor, and the Attorney General, Secretary of State, Governor, Attorney General. At least the ones I'm looking at right here, you might have something that's more advanced. I don't know, but the ones I'm looking at here have Jocelyn Benson with 54% to 44%, and Gretchen Whitmer with 54% to 45%.
What's your number? What's your percentage turnout, Jamie, on the Gretchen? For example, I have 14% of the vote counted, and I have Gretchen Whitmer at 51.8, and Tudor Dixon now at 46.6.
So it's got them for all the other ones, but not for this one for some reason. So I don't know.
So here's an interesting number that I'm finding. Early voting in Michigan, 1.5 million Mail-in and early in-person votes were cast. Now, remember, there's 9.9 million people in Michigan, so that's a huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
And 49% of those cast were Democrats registered, 29 GOP, 22% independent or other. So the vast majority of those early mail-in ballots, those 1.5 million, were Democratic, favoring by at least 20%.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything better necessarily. How many actual votes are you seeing, so I can have an idea for the gubernatorial race for each?
I just refreshed that page. Hang on a second here. For Whitmer, it's just giving you percentages.
You don't have
Whitmer,
the actual vote count? Okay.
let's see if I click this, what happens. All right. Gretchen has 326,570 votes. Tudor Dixon, 293,798 votes.
Wow. Okay. I got completely different numbers. Or this is all bullshit.
Oh, it just updated again. Let's see. Whitmer is up to 51.7%, and Tudor at 46.7%. 327,000 versus 295,000. Still at 14% expected votes. And that's just for the gubernatorial election.
Yeah. This one that I have has Gretchen with 346,000 votes. Tudor Dixon at 287,000.
Well, then you have more updated info than I, because
no, Tudor Dixon's got
your number of Gretchen
295
votes is greater than my number of Gretchen votes.
Yeah, but your number
Pardon?
of Tudor Dixon votes is greater. So there's some bullshit here going on.
I don't think that's true. My number for Tudor Dixon was less than what you quoted.
I thought you said 295.
You know what? I'm pretty sure I did say 295. It doesn't give you a percentage of the vote in, huh?
No, but it has more votes than what you have for Gretchen and less for the Tudors. I don't know. People are taking stabs at it, I guess. And there's no percentage by the gubernatorial race, but there are percentages by all the rest of them.
Yeah, so here's my thing. Right now, I have Gretchen at 332,000 votes. You have her at what?
I have her at, let me go back.
It just clicked over to 333,000 votes, by the way.
I have her at 346,757 votes.
Now, you can't go backwards. So the fact that I've got 333 and you got 346 means that you should have a poll more recent than I have. I have Tudor Dixon at 301,000.
I have her at 287.
No. So. That is effed up, my friend.
No, that's what I said a few minutes ago. Based on the same determination that you just came to, several moments later.
I accepted your determination, but I pursued it to actually get the numbers out there so people who are watching can also come to the same conclusion. But clearly, those two realities cannot coexist. Can't go backwards in votes. Nah, that's not how it works, man. The craziness that surrounds all this nonsense.
Promote the vote, though, still looks pretty strong, as does Proposal 3, seems like. I mean, from what I'm seeing anyway.
I didn't see any results for Proposal 1. I'm not sure what its status was, but it was winning last time we looked.
Yeah, the one that I saw, it was doing better even than the other two.
That's the fun of election night, you know. You never really know what you get into. I remember a very famous election night. I camped out at Cannabis Council and did a live broadcast there. I was part of Russ Belville's broadcast. Remember Russ, Jamie?
Yeah.
From the day, back in the day?
Absolutely.
I was the Michigan correspondent. We had all kinds of different things going on here. Remember, that was when the Safer guys were doing a lot of their ballot proposals. Chris, you talked a little bit about this earlier. What Safer was doing at that time from a grassroots level was really more about trying to establish cannabis rights for individuals and things like that, as opposed to some of the more commercially targeted ballot proposals that we're seeing today.
Sweet.
So now I got one with Gretchen with 408,000 votes and Tudor with 364,000.
All right, so that would jibe with my current numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what I have too. I think I'm using the AP, so that's their estimates. So that's why there's like a little bit of a
because there's some estimates going on.
It's an estimate, yeah.
Our unofficial numbers. It says it all over the sheet. So every time you look, it says unofficial. So you know that it's it's like a beta. We're beta testing some kind of video game, is what it seems like at times.
Yeah.
So we have an update on numbers for Auburn Hills City Adult Use Marijuana Establishment's proposal. Yes, still leads, but by 1726 over 1153 to the nose. So that's a significant lead. That's 600. That's almost, it's 550 essentially. So it's difficult to know how many precincts because it doesn't list it, but that seems pretty significant as far as a lead goes. Medical marijuana proposal for Clarkston. We have numbers. Clarkston, as you will remember, is in Oakland County. That's one of the ones we like, Clarkston. In this instance, the no's are leading in Clarkston, 464 to only 102. That's a spanking. And I'm not sure how many votes will be eventually tallied because it still says 0 precincts reporting. We do have numbers for the charter amendment in Keego Harbor. Now, Keego Harbor is a med only. That's one of those that's identical to Imlay City and Royal Oak. In this instance, the yes is leading still 395 to 357. Such a tight race there. And of course, we know Lathrop Village passed their ban by really 200 votes. 203 votes, really. So that seems like if someone gave a little bit more hustle, Chris, they could have garnered up 203 more votes, don't you think?
I imagine they probably didn't do almost anything. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's relatively close for you know what I'm saying? Like but yeah, we'll see what happens next time, you know. There's a lot of lessons on the board today for people to learn. But you know, guys, I'm gonna dip out.
We're not gonna go too much longer here. I think
I'm pretty wiped out, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the results come in, and I'll be bullshitting with you guys about it. And thanks for having me on.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being around for this, but it is getting late, so we'll probably try to do a rundown and see what we got, and then regroup tomorrow like everybody else probably. Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
See you tomorrow night at the big telethon.
For sure. Look forward to seeing you guys. See you.
Take care.
Yep. Bye.
Well, we also have an update on Brandon Township. Which is a one adult use retailer but prohibit all else community. No's lead with 2,025 over the yeses at 1,799. That's a tight race, but I'm hearing an awful lot of no's are leading day.
As Chris points out, people just aren't nailing these correctly to really be successful. And maybe as we're seeing some of the really tight ones in the medical only, we get an idea for why they went with medical only. They probably had at least a chance at that, as opposed to too much opposition for full adult use. Trisha's saying good night. She's even like bowing out.
Who's that?
The Trish.
Oh, she's headed out. I will say we do have another final ballot proposal for Royal Oak Township. 100% of precincts reporting. The vote is yes, 551 versus no, 377. Royal Oak Township's med only, which is that Tequego Harbor and Imlay City mirror. So we do have a Royal Oak Township win. One victory we can count on. The Addison Township failed. Lathrop Village passed, but that was a ban. And Royal Oak Township approved medical facilities. So that we can count on for this evening. Jamie, are you going to call it? Is it about time?
Yeah.
Damn, I want to know about Colin though.
I want to give one more sweep of a couple of these places, and then call it. But it looks like Polis won again in Colorado. And that with 28% of the vote in, the decriminalized hallucinogenic compounds is doing very well at 54.2% of the vote. So I hope they go on to win in Colorado. Anything starting to come in from Wayne County yet?
I am searching. Wow. Hang on here. Boy, some of these places just do not report. God.
Haley Stevens won. I'm sorry, won.
Oh, well. That's good. Yeah, TV 25 also has no results from Bay County also. It looks like they might just not report until the end of the evening. Wow. Very irritating. But again, you know, you don't have to. You don't do it oftentimes in local politics because to do something means usually extra time and extra money. Yeah. I'm really surprised we don't have more information from Wayne County, though.
That is weird. I don't know if anybody's watching. Oh, cool. A second. So Richard says he's one of the only probably retired here. That's true. But here's the cool thing. Free virtual girls chat in your city. So no matter what's going on with the local election race, you can be distracted a little bit.
Could talk to a virtual girl, so you could talk to someone who's not real.
I'm saying virtual, but it just says vert. So
could be vertical girls.
Incorrectly spelled, yeah. And look, again, there's all types of opportunities for this, you guys. So don't,
Wow. Yep. Yeah, we've devolved to talking about this kind of stuff now. You understand what that means for us. So, by the way, Raphael Warnock has taken lead in Georgia Senate race with 51.3% at 55% of precincts reporting. I swear I just had 60. Yep. See, there you go. Now it updates. Herschel Walker still in lead with 66% reporting.
Wow. Well, that's pretty close though. So we'll, like everybody else, have to figure out what's going on later tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm going to be on the road all day tomorrow, probably getting in some of the results as we go along. But I enjoyed going over what's going on with all these races. Just the fact that there's so many in and of itself is pretty cool. And that's what we wanted to really get into is, hope to bring some light to that. There are some that were completed that we were able to report. We didn't get a lot of positive results. That was to be expected, but we'll get a few out of it. And we'll finalize these things tomorrow. So unless you have anything else, I think that was a cool couple of hours to keep an eye on this shit together and talk about it with everybody.
I think we should do this, every election. I think people will like knowing. I think people like knowing, and I appreciate an opportunity to have an election night experience like this with everyone else too.
I agree. And so we will keep an eye on elections like this, and we'll also be back for the regular show next week. Got a couple of well wishes for good nights. I appreciate it. You guys too. And, won't be on our show, but we'll be somehow communicating about the results and what we think it means tomorrow. Watch some of them go past tomorrow too, but most of them probably by tomorrow. So, all right. Have a good night, everybody. See you later, Rick. We'll talk tomorrow.
Have a good night, everyone. Good broadcast day.
Yeah. Yep. Very good. See you guys. Jazz Cabbage. One more good night from Bob Young. All right. See you guys.